Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off Air podcast. And today, with me, of course, as you will be able to see, is a very special guest indeed. The Stones, one of the Stones' new summer signings, Sol Wanjau-Smith. Welcome, Sol. It's finally nice to sit down and have a little chat with you.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, so it's not your first time on this sort of thing, is it? I know you've done a podcast before, so a little bit familiar territory, but hopefully we'll explore a couple different areas in this one.
Perfect. Sounds good to me.
So, of course, if you don't know and you are listening, maybe you're a new Stones fan or not up to date with, the ongoings over the summer. Sol has joined this summer a couple months ago almost now. It's been a little while, but we're just going to explore, how Sol settled in, a little bit about Sol himself and his ongoing since he's joined the club. He has been unfortunately injured, but the first thing I'd like to talk about is you coming back. You did play in that All the Shots under-21 game. I was there. I did see that first half performance from yourself, and talk us through about that and, how it's been for you being out injured, joining a new club.
Yeah, I think it's never ideal when you join a new club and you're injured straight away, because obviously you want to kind of earn your stripes and prove to everyone that you are kind of good enough to be here. But yeah, it's not ideal, but I think I'm so lucky that I'm training full time, playing full time, and that I've got two physios on hand that are unbelievable, and the support and stuff throughout the boys and behind me at home and stuff is excellent. So like mentally I've been absolutely fine with it. It's just, it is what it is, but I'm just raring to get out there, and it was good to get a little run out on Saturday with the younger lads. And now I was impressed by with quite a few of them, and to be honest I was blowing the first half, so I was just happy to get through the 45 minutes. I think I played all right. Obviously I probably could have scored, but I think you don't really worry about those sort of things. It's just about getting minutes in the legs and just getting yourself going, really.
Yeah, this is essentially your pre-season now, isn't it? This sort of period of the next couple of weeks, maybe a month or so before you do come back. Obviously, your injury has been sort of around your knee, is that right? And maybe that
Yeah.
adaptation to full time. So is there anything that maybe you could just quickly, briefly explain, if you don't want to go too in depth into it
No.
to people listening?
So it's basically an overuse injury, but what's a bit strange, it's not just one of my knees, it's both of them in the same place, which
Sounds like my
is
knees.
yeah, which is very frustrating. But for those who didn't know, last year at Hungerford we only trained twice a week, so going to 3 times a week, and in pre-season it was really 4 minimum, and then with a game on the weekend, that's definitely a different change. And also obviously that's the recovery time, but we didn't train on 4G, we trained on grass, and I think that the give is a little bit different on the 4G, so haven't really been used to that. And I think that's just trying to adapt to that. But yeah, hopefully it won't be too long till I can be out there. But it's just frustrating when it's not like an impact injury or something like that. It's just literally overuse, where you've just got to rest it and then try and build up the strength back in the tendons.
Yeah, I can imagine for someone, especially signing, professional contract and stuff, like 2 years contract as well, which of course is hopefully very good for you. I'm sure that was always something you were looking to get, extended stays at professional club for the first time. But when it comes to signing for the club, I do believe Hakan Hayretin said after we played you that I want to sign that boy there. Like Sol Wanjau-Smith, he's the guy that I'm looking at. I'd love to have him. So, is there what sort of feeling did you have when, Hack approached you, or was it that sort of thing, or was it the club approach? How did it feel being in that situation?
Well, actually after the game, when unfortunately at the time we lost 3-2, but Hack did approach me,
Revenge.
obviously just as like a bit of a cheeky comment, saying like, "Oh, where do you live?" and stuff like that, just trying to get me there. And when he found out I lived in Bristol, he was fuming. Um, but yeah, he just said that he was a bit interested or whatever, but nothing's concrete during the season. And then the agency I'm with have quite a few players. We've got like Luque, Jack Barham, George Fowler, and they know Hack really well. And basically sat them down and said that they really wanted me in the summer. And after speaking with my agency and stuff, and I travelled up twice to have meetings and stuff, I just thought it was the best place for me to be. And that's why, I signed on the dotted line. And that's why I'm so excited to try and get out there and play. But obviously frustrating at the moment, but it won't be too long, hopefully.
Yeah, I can just tell from my interviews I've seen with you and, talking to you yesterday as well at the under 21s game, or a couple of days ago now, actually. It's like a kid in a sweet shop, you and playing football. It's just, I can tell your excitement is already there, like just gonna hit the ground running, I'm sure. But um, if you didn't attend, for anybody listening, the Enfield Town preseason game, that was, I believe, your first appearance in a Maidstone shirt. I think you got a goal and an assist in that game in the
Yeah.
first half. Yeah. And really bright prospect. I'm sure you would have seen from the highlights. If you haven't, go watch them. At the start of this video, I've actually included a little montage of your highlights from last season, Sol. So
Okay.
it'll give people an opportunity if they don't know, what we're getting to, fully understand. So, yeah, I mean, obviously that's kind of a bit of an idea as to what you're looking at in terms of your injury at the moment. When it comes to actually being on the pitch, though, um, I've from what I can find online, you seem to be someone who can play in a couple of different positions. Is that right? Up front.
Yeah, I'd say so.
And is there anywhere that you prefer to play? Have you got a position that you're like, right, if I had to pick and there was no one else there, that would be my choice?
So obviously it's all formation dependent, but growing up, I was always a striker
Hmm.
until I transitioned into men's football, where I started playing on the wing because I didn't really grow until I was a bit later. So they wanted to try and get me on the ball as much as I could. And my hold up play was absolutely shocking. There was just big, ugly men going through me all the time, or whatever, and
Yeah.
just getting battered. So I started playing on the wing. But then that carried on through step 5, step 4, and to Hungerford. But Hungerford played a 3-5-2, so
Hmm.
the play was two strikers. And I did initially try and play wing back, but I just put it lung back because it's absolutely horrible. And
Gassing
yeah, you
out
just been
all the time.
yeah, it's so much pointless running, and it's absolute head loss, to be honest. And then unfortunately, oh no, someone got a move. Craig Fasamade went to Wildstone,
Hmm.
and they kind of said, "Oh, could you try and like fill his shoes or whatever, and try and play a similar role to him?" And it just seemed to work. So that's why I was playing up front last year. But if we were to play, well, we play a 4-3-3 normally at Maidstone.
Yeah.
So on the left of the front three would be definitely my preferred position.
Hmm.
But to be honest, I'm happy to play anywhere across the three. But I think on the left hand side would definitely be my preferred place.
Well, I mean, that clearly shows your attacking prowess. You managed to adapt to fill those boots of Fasamadi left. And if you didn't know, 6 goals and 17 assists last season, from what I
Yeah,
could find. So, uh, if not the top, definitely very close to the top assister in the National League last season, right? Or National League South,
yeah,
sorry.
I'm definitely up there, I think.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, 17. But yeah, it'd be great to have that in our squad. And just going back quickly to um, you coming, of course, this is, I think, your first time moving away from home. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's a bit
Yeah. So
interesting.
I know you went to uni, and we'll get into that a little bit later, just a few more like personal things. But when it comes to moving away from home, obviously, it's a big step, professional football, that sort of thing. But I know you said in terms of mentally you're in a good space, but how difficult, if at all, was that transition to move away from family and friends and stuff like that? Because I've just finished my dissertation for uni and stuff, just graduated, but I looked a lot into the mental health of sports players during my graduation, or during my dissertation, and that gave me an insight into how difficult it can be. So, how did you deal with that?
Well, I think that I've always been quite lucky with at home. My mum kind of does everything for me. She calls herself a momager, like a mum manager. She always says that. But yeah, so she'd always have everything prepared for me and stuff like that. And she actually made it quite easy when we initially transitioned to living on my own. Because even when I got into my room, she sorted everything out before she left and stuff like that. And she already filled the cupboards and all that jazz. But I think the hardest thing I found is actually just cooking for yourself, because sometimes
Hmm.
after training and stuff, you're just absolutely starving. It could be really easy just to get delivery or something like that. Or
Yeah.
to be honest, I eat at the village with Regan so much, it's an absolute joke. They know our orders off by heart.
The regulars.
Um, yeah, honestly. But I think the transition's been okay. I think purely because people like Regan and Rafe and Corney, they all live quite close. And
Hmm.
Regan's in kind of a similar boat to me, where he moved away obviously a year earlier to Maidstone.
Yeah.
His family are 4 hours away, mine are 3 hours
Hmm.
away. So we seem to just spend a lot of time with each other. And I think he understood that it was the first time for me. And when he moved away to Aldershot for the first time, he kind of could see similarities in how I
Yeah.
was. So I think he's been really helpful, and I'm really grateful that he has kind of taken me under his wing. And I think it would be even easier if I was playing, because you don't really have time to think about anything.
Mm.
But I think that would just come in time, and the transition will even be even smoother.
That's good, because that brings me on actually to another question I was going to ask about, obviously coming here. I don't think, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you've played with anybody from the squad before. Is that right?
No, I don't think I have. No.
Okay, so you obviously mentioned Regan there, but is there anybody else who, you kind of spend a lot of time with or get on with? Obviously there's quite a close-knit group here. So from an outside perspective, that might be quite difficult to break into. Obviously you're the outsider as such. Obviously you're part of the team now, but coming into that, were you worried, and did you manage to find your group amongst the group, if that makes sense, besides Regan?
I think when a team's been so successful, it can be quite daunting going to join them, because you know that everyone's going to be so tight knit and it's going to be quite hard to break into it. But I was a bit shocked actually of like how welcoming everyone was, and even though, especially with the rapport that Hungerford kind of have with everyone in the league, that no one really enjoys playing against them. I was diving all over the place.
Yeah, we had a lovely time there last time going to Hungerford.
Yeah, exactly. But everyone just seems to get on with everyone, and everyone's been so welcoming. I probably spent a lot of time with Rafe and JB, because obviously they're injured as well. But honestly, everyone has been welcoming. I've had so many different conversations with absolutely everyone, which was very surprising, because I've been at teams before where there's a group of young lads, slightly older boys, lads that are in the car school, they only talk to each other and stuff like that. Whereas here, everyone is kind of one unit and one family, and that just makes it so much easier.
That's good. Again, you're 23 now, right? Unless you've had a birthday that I've forgotten. But
No.
yeah, so looking at the average age of our squad, we've got quite a young squad. There's obviously a few older players in there, Luke, Hoyt, Ella Kobe as well. I know he's still not playing, but he's in and around the squad in a coaching sense. Is there anybody who, in your career or at Maidstone at least, who's been that sort of role model in football for you whilst you're at a team? That kind of person who you've learned from the most, or encouraged you to perform the best in your game?
That's a very good question, actually. Well, I think when I played at Step 4, it was kind of a similar thing where there wasn't too many older players. So I was only 19 at the time, but there were still younger players than me in the squad. But then, whereas at Hungerford, I was the youngest signed player last year, which is a bit strange, because obviously we've got like Perry and Biv and stuff who are me now. But I'd say last year at Hungerford, Keith Emerson was really helpful, and I don't know if you feel like me saying this, but he actually signed a scholar at Hartlepool before I was born.
Okay.
So that's kind of the
bit of an age gap.
That's the age gap. But I think he really helped me kind of with the mental side, and just understanding that if I want to go further, I can go further. I just kind of have to keep pushing myself and believe in myself.
That's good. And on the topic of role models, I think a lot of people probably know that you didn't really take the traditional non-league route in dropping down from, the big teams in terms of an academy straight into the National League or the South or something like that. You kind of worked your way up, didn't you? You started off, I think, were you at Southampton Academy, and then
so
up
I was
through
at Western Supermare 18s. Yeah. So when I was in Western Supermare 18s, we played a pre-season match against Plymouth, and I think it was our Plymouth 17s, like a mixture of 16s and their first year scholars. And Southampton were there watching one of the Plymouth boys. Okay. And I actually scored a hat trick and we won 4-0.
Well done.
And then Southampton came to my next youth cup game, which is just against like Clevedon Town, which is they're like a Step 5 club.
Yeah, they probably never heard of them.
The under 18s. Yeah. And we won 4-2, but I scored a hat trick again. And then the following week, I was playing in like the under 18 Premier League against Aston Villa. And it was just like, it's pretty crazy. But I don't think I was like physically ready at that point.
Yeah.
But obviously, that was just such an amazing experience, going from playing literally in front of a man and his dog to the 18th Prem, which is madness.
Yeah, that is definitely crazy. And when it comes to getting into football, as I said, we just discussed you did start off in the kind of smaller steps of football. Um, when it came to getting into football from a much younger age, was there anybody who sort of pushed you? Because I know as you kind of developed your career in the early stages, you had quite a lot on. You were at uni and you were working and playing football as well. But before you got to all that, was there anybody who kind of pushed you towards football, or was it sort of something that you wanted to do and then was just supported along with it?
No, I definitely think that I wasn't pushed. I really wasn't really pushed ever. Um, my mum's always supported me. My dad's always supported me to drive me to places.
Mhm.
But I'd say that I've always just wanted to play, and I think that's been since an early age. My mum actually told me that I wanted to play. I think you can't sign up until under fives,
Right.
and but I was 4, and I really wanted to play, so they let me play, just go and train with the team before before they could sign me up. So I couldn't actually play matches or anything, but I could just go there and train. But I
Have
think
a
it's like
little
an
run about.
insurance. Yeah.
Well, it's nice to see that you've been supported along your career up to this point, at least. And when it comes to obviously moving away, we'll just go back to that. Um, Obviously now the travel is a lot more as well. And for you, how do you think this is impacting the team a little bit? Talk about the team a little bit now. Um, Obviously we've seen some big away days in recent weeks. Obviously the National South last year, games weren't too far away. But does that affect match preparation? Does that affect kind of everybody's thoughts? How does the traveling affect you when you're playing a game?
Well, personally, I've been used to it, even though I
Mhm.
haven't played this season. Playing for Hungerford and living near Bristol in Somerset, there's only 2 teams that are really close. That's Bath and Chippenham, and then Hungerford's the next closest, and then everything else is basically on the M25. So I've just been kind of used to it. I remember, I think went to Eastbourne, and I left my house at 8 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get back until 10:30, and that was like the same day travel.
Sounds about right.
And we lost 5-2 when our keeper got sent off in
Oh.
the 80th minute at 2. So yeah, that was a really fun bus journey back. But I think that what's slightly different about the National League is that you travel up on a Friday,
Mhm.
and that's something that I'm actually buzzing for, because I think that for me, that's like, oh my gosh, this is real football. Like being
Yeah.
in a hotel the night before a game, all that sort of preparations. But then in the same thing, I'm very like meticulous about what I like to eat, the
Mhm.
sleep I like to get, and stuff like that. I don't know whether that could affect me when it comes to it, or if that affects anybody. But I think that I think we've adapted quite well to some of the changes, but I can't speak for everyone,
Mhm.
and everyone's different with how they react to sort of different things.
Well, I did listen to Jerome's podcast in the week with the Stone Age podcast, and he said that sometimes he finds it difficult to keep on top of his eating habits or his fitness or something like that. But obviously, you've just said there how you're quite structured and quite regimented in how you want to do things, and hopefully that is going to be, well, it is obviously a very important thing in progressing your professional career. So obviously, as I mentioned earlier, you've got this 2-year contract with Maidstone, but I'm assuming this isn't where you're setting your sights. So when it comes to you, have you got a sort of plan of where you're aiming to be in the future, or is this kind of seeing how it goes, playing it by year, by season, or have you kind of got targets that you want to meet along the way?
No, I think it's just seeing where it goes and just enjoying it whilst it happens. I think that if you kind of aim too high, and you don't quite meet your expectations or meet your hopes, then you forget to kind of enjoy the journey as it happens.
Hmm.
And I love playing football. I love scoring goals. I love beating players. If I forget about enjoying those things, then I think that the end goal might kind of fall by the wayside, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I've always tried to just enjoy every season as it happens, try and play as many games, score as many goals, and then you can kind of assess it at the end of the year and say, oh, maybe if I do this next year, that might be to get to here.
Hmm.
But it's not say I want to score 400 goals and be in the Prem next year or whatever, and be an England international, because you can't think like that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have the realistic expectations, and it is, especially in football, it's not a particularly long career in the grand scheme of things. It's not something you can do for, well, in rare cases, more than a decade, really.
Mm-hmm.
So it is about enjoying the journey, and you know, making the most of it really in terms of, celebrating your successes along the way, but also maintaining quite realistic goals. And I think that's a good mindset to have. That's something that I try to do just in life. So, it's good that you share that philosophy. Now on to more personal things and a few more of the gimmicky type segments of this podcast. I've got a couple questions from people that I know. One person wants to know, where's the best atmosphere that you've played at? And you're not pressured to say Maidstone. Obviously, got better attendance than some last season, but when it comes to, atmospheres or big games for you, was there something where you kind of turned up and thought, wow, this is really good. This is a big atmosphere here?
I'd definitely say that Maidstone's the best atmosphere I've played at, just because I played at Dulwich Hamlet previously before that, and we actually played on a Sunday, and there was like 3,000 people there. But no offense to Dulwich Hamlet fans, they were loud when they scored, but there wasn't really any sort of singing, and like there was no drum, there was nothing really behind the crowd, the club, sorry. So you kind of hear like, it was really strange. You could hear people like murmuring and like talking as you were playing. It was pretty strange. But then when we played Maidstone, and obviously the silence when I scored to go 2-0 up was class. But then the roar when Jack Barham stuck it in the stands for this, that hurt. But it was also like, that's an unbelievable atmosphere. Like felt quite blessed to be able to play in that. When I thought to myself, like 2 years ago, I was playing for Slimbridge in Step 4, and we'd probably only average like maybe 80, 100 a week.
Yeah.
And there was like 2,500. So that was pretty nuts.
Well, it's going to be an even bigger step up this season, and there's definitely going to be some atmospheres which kind of bring that level of, sound and anticipation. Obviously, I'm not sure if you went to the Wrexham game. Obviously, it's a long journey, but I commentated that one. I said it quite a few times now. It's the first time I've not been able to actually hear myself whilst I'm commentating, and I'm trying to broadcast, and I don't know if I should be shouting down the mic or just speaking into it. I could not hear a word, and almost 10,000 people. And yeah, it's just crazy that, the path that you've gone on, that trajectory has just been, really quick. And hopefully, of course, for your own career, not from necessarily a Maidstone perspective, you can keep pushing on. But I also want to ask, obviously, when you were a bit younger, goals were quite prevalent in your career. I think you finished top scorer in the Western Super Under 18s. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then last season, I think you was top assister in the league for assists. Goals not obviously as high, but made up for it. Is there a choice between, do you enjoy more scoring goals or setting up goals, being that team player? Or obviously there's the thrill of scoring a goal, can't really be beaten, can it? But, what do you value more?
I think personally, like you said, you can't beat scoring. You can't beat, say, after a game going to check the highlights because you've scored. But
straight to the 50th minute or whatever.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if you scored and you lost 3-1, then it doesn't really mean anything. I think I'd rather win 2-1 and get an assist than lose 3-1 and score the goal. I think that's kind of how I have to think, because it was similar to my mindset at Hungerford, because obviously we were tipped to be bottom of the bottom and to get relegated at the start of the season. So I think we finished 12th in the end, or 13th.
Yeah, and 13th, I think it was,
Yeah, at the start of the season, everyone would have said, I would have bitten your hand off to finish 13th.
Yeah, absolutely.
But obviously, there was a time where we could have really pushed into the playoffs.
Well, I thought tail end of the season, that's what we was going to see. And I was kind of like, oh, not Hungerford, like get playoffs after the, antics we've had this season with them. But continue, sorry.
It would have been actually really funny to, obviously, I'm glad that Maidstone won the league, but it would have been funny if Hungerford and Maidstone had played each other in the playoffs.
Oh, God.
Because, that would have been
chaos.
That'd have been crazy. But yeah, I think just overall, it's all about a team winning. That's kind of how I've been brought up. That, okay, it's good to score goals. It's nice to go past people, but it has to be, the end goal has to be to go and win a game.
Now, you mentioned, sorry, continue.
I was just going to say that I remember, so my under-18s manager was Jake Morford at West Supermare, and he works at Milfield now. one of the schools in Somerset, and
Mhm.
he used to always be about playing lovely football, lovely football. And then when we got to under 18s, we lost a few games. We lost, so Western were in the Conference South, and we lost to a team that's playing, their under 18s were in like step 6.
Right.
And he said to us, he was like, how can you expect the Western first team manager to have a look at these players if you can't beat a step 6 under 18s? Because that's the first thing that they're going to look at, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is
of
how do
course.
they
They
get on?
always look at it on paper, yeah.
Exactly. And if he's not at every single game, then how are they going to expect you to come and step up? So he's like, we've learnt the fundamentals now up to under 18s, and now we have to start winning games. And I think that's why I really enjoyed not being like an under 23s or something and playing passive football. I liked going straight into men's football where jobs are on the line, kind of thing. There's goal bonuses, there's clean sheet bonuses. It's proper football.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little bit familiar with the under 23s Premier League and things like that. And, you watch some of their games, and at times there's, parts where you kind of watching and you go, this is almost like training match-esque. So I see what you're saying in terms of, the stuff on the line actually makes the sport what it is. Everybody's got a role to do, everybody's got a job they're being paid to do. And of course, nobody wants to let anybody else down in that situation.
Exactly.
So speaking of potentially letting people down, in a slightly more depressing question, obviously we just played Gateshead, didn't go too well. I know we had a little bit of a chat about it on Saturday whilst the game was ongoing, but we didn't speak after the game, and 4-1 was the result. But of course, not only taking into account the Gateshead game, for the season so far, how do you think the boys are doing? Obviously you're not part of the playing squad yet, but obviously you're in and around it. And what's the general atmosphere around the club? How is everybody dealing with the season so far? What's the sort of, looking at the trajectory of the squad, picking up a few wins, couple draws, things like that. How's everybody sort of feeling about it?
I think everyone's in a really positive mindset. I think we've obviously had some good results, well, some mixed results. We had some decent wins at home. We haven't done great on the road, but apart from the Aldershot game and stuff. But I think that we've seen little glimpses of what we can do.
Yeah.
And I think that as a team, we just need to make sure that we can be more consistent. And I think that's what the kind of this talk is behind closed doors, and eradicate a few mistakes, and that we will have a really good chance of firstly staying in the league, but then who says we can't push up a little bit higher? Because I think that's kind of the mentality of a lot of the players, that we don't just want to kind of settle. Can we try and really push ourselves?
Yeah, I think before the season, a lot of fans, I'm not sure if players or anything like that. I know we follow each other on Twitter, and I think you saw my video when you first joined, and I spoke to Henry, and he said he saw my video on him when he first joined. And when it comes to players interacting with the fan base, this is quite a fan-centric club. We kind of interact with the players a lot more than other clubs do. And Jerome said in his podcast, it's quite strange for him at times that he engages so much with the fan base. So when it comes to seeing the reaction of the fan base, how does that affect you? Obviously now you've never really had this before in terms of this presence of fans and this interaction with fans. How does the fan base's reactions affect yourself or other players? Do they take much attention to it? Is there any sort of talk about, oh, the fans might not have been happy with that or anything like that? Is it just something you push to the side, or is it something that kind of plays big on your mind?
I think it's kind of human nature to have a little look at what people are saying about you. And I actually got in I'm in a quite a bad habit where I'll just have a spare 5 minutes or something. I'll go on the forum, and I'll see what people are saying on the forum.
Is that Facebook or the actual forum, like the one you Google? Okay, yeah. The actual forum is not actually that bad.
Oh, okay. Is there a Facebook one?
The Facebook support, Maidstone Facebook supporters group. That's the one where things kind of get a bit rowdy sometimes. It's lovely.
Really?
That's lots of good people on there, but there's a lot of differing opinions on there at times.
But I think that it's natural sometimes to have a little look. I'm not sure. I can't speak for everyone, but obviously when it's going good, it's great to have a little look, and people are hyping you up and stuff. But when it's going bad, I think it kind of just intensifies a lot of emotions, you know what I mean? So it can obviously add, but it can also be detrimental if you think like, oh, so and so. A lot of people don't think I should be in the squad, don't think I should be playing and stuff. It could have a bad effect. But then I think some players also have the mentality of like, who are they sometimes to say this to us, which you can take it how you want. But I think what you have to remember is everyone is trying to do the best for the football club, and everyone is trying to take this football club as far as it can go further. So, and we all have the same goal. I think that's what everyone has to remember.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's lost a little bit in translation that, nobody player wise, at least, or staff wise, benefits from a negative performance or a negative result. It's not like anybody would have gone into Gateshead thinking, right, let's go and throw this game away. Like, it just doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, nobody works like that. And sometimes things like that do get a little bit taken too far in terms of reactions and things like that. I mean, for me at least, I'm always quite pessimistic going into games, to be honest. I'm always thinking, oh God, we might lose this one. I set myself up just to be ready in case. Like, last season, I think we was on like a 15-14 game home unbeaten run at one point towards the end of the season. And I was like, I think we was going into Hampton or Richmond or something. And I was like, God, we could lose this one. You never know. Like, but we was on fire. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. But in terms of reacting to games and stuff, I've always been quite mellowed out in it. I don't really tend to look too much into it. Like Wrexham, a lot of people were very disappointed with that one. But for me, I was, how are you going to compete with that? They're barely a non-league team with the players they've got and the infrastructure and things like that. But as for, reactions and things like that, hopefully when it comes to you getting the squad, there's not going to be any of that. There's going to be lots of nice words said, and there's going to be lots of goals scored. I'm sure there will be. Whether you're setting them up or scoring them yourself, I'm sure you'll kick on. You fit the philosophy that the club tends to play with. From everybody I've spoken to, and this is no disrespect to anybody else that's come in, you were the sort of player that everybody's gone, oh wow, like, this is going to be great. Really excited to see him play. And unfortunately, that hasn't quite happened yet. Obviously, it's been a couple of appearances, but I just, before we wrap things up, I do want to just say to you, best of luck in terms of your injury and getting back on the pitch. Everybody's going to be 110% behind you when you do come back. So do not fret about that at all. That's, everybody I've spoken to is really excited to see you play, and especially with Luque as well being out, the left wing. I'm sure that spot is up for grabs in terms of competition. So hopefully you can kick on. And again, I just want to say thank you very much for joining me on the pod. So if you've got any last words or any messages you want to put out
thank
there.
You very much for having me on, and I'm looking forward to hopefully donning the shirt sooner rather than later.
I'm sure I'll look better than Hungerford at least. But sorry, I've still got my personal gripes there, commentated last season. But again, thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you again so much for Sol for being the first special guest on the podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. And hopefully, come the end of the season, maybe, if things have gone pretty well, then maybe we'll be able to do this again sometime. But again, thank you everyone for watching. Thank you once more, Sol, for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one.